So Catherine, I want us now to deepen our conversation along the lines of legacy. And I suppose my question for you is, what changes have you made to ensure that you create a sustainable legacy?
Well, the word legacy is hugely important, and hugely important for us here as leaders of this business, and certainly for me. We have a saying on the board which is totally true: we are just custodians, or at the moment we are leaders for the now, but in fact actually we're the custodians of the future leaders. So this isn't about us, really. It's not about how important we are and do you know who I am type approach. It's not about how important we feel, and therefore we're performing a role, we're performing a service, because it is up to us to deliver, well, to improve. We take over, we have a legacy, and then we'll pass on. Mm-hmm. And that legacy element is about what we do in the meantime. And we perform a service. We have 3,000 people worldwide. The decisions we make are going to impact upon them. So that's quite a heavy responsibility, because, you know, in the time that I've been in the board, we are now, as I said, 3,000 people. We're also a £500 million business. You know, as a partnership, that's quite weird, because we are both managers and shareholders. So we're in a fairly unique position, but we have a huge responsibility, and we're, you know, a big organisation. So that legacy has become even more important about what we do and how we take something and hand it on. We hand that baton on to the next generation, and we give it to them in a better place than we were in when we took it over. So it's the key word, actually. It's hugely important.
I mean, that's really interesting, and I mean, I know you're a huge advocate for diversity and inclusion, and you're passionate about career progression for females. So what I'm interested in hearing about, Catherine, really from you, is what has influenced your views in the context of a diversity and inclusion through your role at Pinsent Masons over the last kind of 20 years?
So you could go with statistics. There's lots of statistics about diverse teams make better decisions, more inclusive decisions, deliver better results. For me, that's totally true. But what we have to do is we have to create the environment that permits that diversity and inclusion. It's all very well saying, tick, I have got X number of people on the board, or tick, I've got this amount of diverse people working in my business. But how do you use that diversity and inclusion? How do you create the environment that allows that to flourish? How do you, I mean, people say women on a board creates a diversity of thinking. It so does. But how do you make sure that those women on the board sitting next to the men with the board, how do you, it's about balance and gender balance. How do you both make a contribution? How do you all put forward a view that gives that richness of thinking? So for me, totally, I'm a woman who, I'm a board member, I'm the head of the Middle East. How lucky am I to be in this position? I have a responsibility to do something with that, most definitely. And that brought me to a huge discussion about quotas and targets. And I had quite a revolutionary, probably both thought about this, because for me, you know, being a woman on the board, I would be absolutely devastated if someone said, you're only there because you're a woman. I would be devastated, because I would think, well, I'd like to think I'm there because I'm providing, I'm a good leader, I'm good at what I do, I give good decisions, I help inform making amazing decisions for our business, and I'm only here because I'm a woman. However, somebody did say to me, look, Catherine, things have to change, and you might be the person that has to help that change. So if I am sitting there because I'm a woman, is that really a bad thing? If that means going forward that things will change and the next person is appointed because of how amazing they are. It's not saying you're not amazing, but it just means that you are breaking the cycle. And maybe my role is to break the cycle. And that's a great role because I'm doing something good. So I've battled with this one. And until that person said that to me, I was against quotas, definitely. Must be about targets. But now I'm not too sure. I would be happy and delighted that if my time on the board or my time in this role meant that somebody else would do it automatically, then job done.
Yeah, and it's fascinating what you're saying, because if I think about you and the leadership skills that you've been describing to me, that we're not actually talking about a gender issue, are we? No. We're actually talking about a skill set issue. And there's a recent report done by McKinsey which identifies the leadership characteristics that are required to lead through change, transformational change in the 21st century. And there's 9 in total. 5 of them are ones that women mainly have. And those are exactly what you've been talking about: role modelling, positive role modelling, and participative decision making, and inspiration. These are leadership traits that you've described yourself. So yes, we can see it as a gender issue, but I think what we're talking about here is more of a skills issue.
Totally agree.
So on that point, if you have 2 equally qualified candidates, equally qualified, how do you make your decision which one to hire?
Difficult one. A difficult one, because this is when I'm going to be a total lawyer now and say it depends. And the reason I say it depends is it does depend on a whole heap of different circumstances. And I do actually have an example of where we discuss this. So I'm on our nominations committee, so NomsCom, as we call ourselves, are there to appoint, to run the process to appoint the leaders of our business, new sectoral group heads. And a while ago, we had a situation, so the board is pretty balanced. We have 4 women and 5 men, which is great. Our group and sector heads, less diverse, and at one point we had 1 woman and in amongst 8. And we were looking at a sector head role. And before we worked out who the candidates were, on who the candidates might be, we all said to ourselves that exact question. If we have 2 candidates come forward, both equal, there's nothing separating them at all, we could appoint both of them, which one would we positively say we would appoint the woman in that scenario? And we did. We said we would do that in that scenario because there was 1 woman to 7 men. And we did not feel that that was bringing a great enough diversity of thinking at our operationals board. Now, we might have made a different decision if there had been 4 and 5. And there's always something that tips the balance one way or another. But it is a question we have to ask ourselves, whether or not we think I think it is the right thing to do. But it is a tricky one, because you're opening other feelings about reverse discrimination, feelings of, well, I might as well not go for it. I'm a man. I might not go for it because I'm up against a woman. And, you know, this is, unfortunately, or fortunately, or what it should be about, is about balance and who is the right person for the job, and who's going to do the job well. But it's hard. It's
hard, and leadership is hard, isn't it?
Yes,
leadership's hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and to me, leadership is hard, particularly where you have situations where leaders are behaving in a way that isn't part of your brand. It doesn't align with your beliefs.